1840. The whole world is shaken by unusual news. Roselli's ship was discovered in the Bahamas. The ship had supplies of drinking water and provisions. The load remained intact. The boats were in place, but Roselli's crew was missing, and only one canary survived on board. 1918. An entire 165-meter cargo ship goes missing in the same area. And of the 306 passengers on board, not one was able to send a distress signal. Both of these cases occurred inside the area, which is called the Bermuda Triangle. And soon the planes began to disappear there. But how can this pattern be called a bloated journalistic tale or an unknown anomaly? And what is actually under the waters of the Bermuda Triangle? Let's figure it out. The Bermuda Triangle is an area of the Atlantic Ocean located east of the coast of Florida. The water area of the triangle partially belongs to the Bahamas, and the site itself is located between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Its area is more than 140,000 square miles. This section is very difficult to navigate due to the fact that it has a large number of cancellations, and cyclones and storms are often born. This impossibility can be explained by the fact that Bermuda is located in the open ocean. And if the storm starts simultaneously in the south and north sectors, as well as off the coast of Florida, then these three storms can collide, and such a merger will create huge waves. Throughout the history of navigation in this area, various ships have been wrecked. And in many respects the reason for this was the usual natural phenomena that sailors often encounter in the open ocean. For example, the already mentioned 55-meter-long Cyclops most likely fell victim to sideways. And there are several facts. This vessel had a flat bottom for greater carrying capacity, and this made it more unsuitable for sideways. At the same time, he could also become a victim of one giant wave which, unlike ordinary ones, can appear even in clear weather. And, most likely, it was precisely such natural phenomena that caused the death of this and other ships in the area, since such waves overtake the ships suddenly, and do not even allow them to give a distress signal. But even one such story is enough to create a legend that the whole world will talk about. And that is why journalists could not bypass this place. In the second half of the 20th century, various unverified information about the Bermuda Triangle began to appear in newspapers. And very soon it received its current reputation, imprinted in the minds of people as an unusual, mysterious and mystical place. But is it really so? The main interest in this place was caused not only by the loss of ships. And the loudest event is the disappearance of 5 carrier-based bombers on December 5, 1945. If you read this story in the newspaper, you too may mistake it for something mystical. After all, at first glance it really seems inexplicable. The leading link was an experienced pilot, and the flight itself takes place in clear weather. Searches for the missing planes have yielded no results, and the only evidence of the catastrophe was deciphered. The conversations of the crews, in which it is heard that the pilots were completely disoriented, and due to the failure of all compasses, they no longer understood where they were. However, if you look into this in more detail, mysticism and conspiracy theories fade into the background, and such incidents have a completely logical explanation. One of the most common versions is the theory of giant waves, which can reach a height of 30 meters. Such a wave, of course, will not harm an airplane in any way, but it can easily sink even the most gigantic ship. This phenomenon is due to the fact that a storm in the ocean can last several days, and if two waves overlap each other, they mutually amplify, which is called intervention. As a result, the height of such waves can exceed all conceivable dimensions and become deadly even for the most adapted to the storm. At the same time, unlike tsunamis, such waves form very suddenly and even under favorable weather conditions. And the fact that after the loss very often there is no wreckage is due to the fact that the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle has one of the most difficult reliefs in the Atlantic Ocean. The triangle crosses the huge depression of the Puerto Rico Trench, which reaches a depth of 742 meters. The length of the redneck is 754 kilometers, and the width is about 97 kilometers. This depression is the deepest point in the Atlantic Ocean. In addition, in the Bermuda Triangle one can also observe a very diverse bottom topography, including continental slopes, shelf with shallow shores on the middle and marginal plateaus of the official plains and deep straits. By itself, this does not explain the loss of ships, but it makes it almost impossible to search for sunken ships. And if we talk about the death of the aircraft, then here the answer may be at the bottom of the ocean and be of a titanic nature. Seismic activity in the lower part of the triangle can cause magnetic disturbances, which, in turn, affect the operation of navigational instruments. At the same time, frequent underwater earthquakes lead not only to methane emissions, but also to the formation of sound, which, in turn, is refracted by radio waves. This may explain the malfunction of the electronic equipment and the disorientation of the pilots. In addition, sound can have a detrimental effect on the human psyche and, being under its influence, pilots and sailors can lose their minds and do rash acts, for example, abandon their ships or lose the ability to control them. However, the most convincing is the version of degassing that occurs as a result of the breakdown of hydro and methane in sediments on the seabed. The reason for the formation of these deposits is the long process of decomposition of living organisms. According to this concept, large bottles form in water saturated with methane, the density of which is reduced so much that ships cannot stay afloat and instantly sink. As the methane rises to the surface, the water becomes saturated with gas bubbles, causing the ship to lose its buoyancy. At the same time, geologists have even observed how entire oil platforms go underwater because of such emissions. And if we talk about the crash of planes, then there is a possibility that, having risen into the air, methane can cause them to fall. For example, due to a decrease in air density, which leads to a decrease in lift and distortion of NPP readings. The possibility of a fairly rapid flooding of the vessel due to this phenomenon was confirmed experimentally. But at the same time, such a gas bubble must be greater than or equal to the size of the vessel itself. However, it is also found in other places of the world ocean, for example, in the Sea of Okhotsk and in many other seas of our planet. But, unlike the Bermuda Triangle, they did not gain fame, as they did not have a particularly loud crash. But one cannot ignore that many reports of events in the Bermuda Triangle are greatly exaggerated, and seaplanes are disappearing in other parts of the world. If we summarize all of the above and look at the Bermuda Triangle as a section of the ocean, in which cyclones and storms do often pass, then the number of disasters that have occurred there does not seem so unusual. And if people somehow get to the root causes of all incidents, most likely, we will not find any mystical facts there. But so far this has not happened. The Bermuda Triangle still continues to rouse wide interest among a huge number of inhabitants of the planet Earth. If you like topics like this, we really appreciate it if you could write about any other unusual places you'd like to hear about. Indeed, even despite the fact that there are a huge number of interesting objects in space, for a very long time our Earth will most likely be of the greatest interest to science. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and like this video.